Okay, I printed some of these greebles here. They're all the same. I did mirror some of them. Like these two are the same, and these two are the same. I don't know if that's going to make a difference for what they're going to be used for. But I'm going to use this section here for controls on the access hatch from underneath that we just put on with the droid tube and everything. There's two areas that you can put that are look like panel areas really for each hatch. There's two hatches on each side, and I'm going to make those controls for those hatches. So I'll put one row on one panel area and one in another. And then these here, I'm going to see if I can put in the ladder areas that are on the lower front side. Yeah. They're on the both sides of the lower. There's that little ladder in recess and a ladder going up. There's no detail in there, so I might see if I can get those to work for that. Right here is this is the open hatch, and here's a closed one, and on the other side it has two closed ones. But right here is this section here, and then there's another here. Well, that to me looks like a control panel. I don't know. But of course I want something in there and maybe something up in this. So we'll see. You'll see where we can get them to fit. My printer just stopped, so I got a bunch more Jawas that I got to paint up and try to get in here before we close this front end in too. Because it's going to be much easier if I can take this ceiling out and get some back there. But that's where we're at. So I got those greebles glued in there. I did the double switchy thing up top and the single one down low, and then the ladder will sit in like that, so it looks like they can reach those, and maybe they'll control the hatches or something, or the droid thing. And I'm going to do the same thing same thing on the other side. And then I got some this leftover part. This is with those cut off. This leftover part, I just cut this and then cut that, put this little piece up towards the front, and then took this and cut and made it fit alongside there, just to look like there's some controls in this ladder area. I'm just going to hit those with just the hull colors, not going to do anything. These I might hit with something, the knob in the center. This brown, kind of primer brown, is working good for a base, but then it's going to get all kinds of different reds, you know, like this burgundy, and I got a rust red, and we got some like a Mars orange, a regular orange, which will probably be more, and then we got some of the browns we're going to pull into it. Got that there. This one's a really nice because it has a little bit of that oxidized looking brown. What is this called? Woodsy smoke, which will work good in this area. And then we'll do that kind of whitish gray wash. But being these are craft acrylics, they'll go on so light. It's nice when using them for like weathering, and especially when it's going to be a lot of it's going to be airbrushed. And yeah, that's basically we're real close. I just printed up a whole bunch of Jawas that just got done, so I'm gonna start adding more of those. So I got to do that before we get the front on here. Okay, I got these little triangles printed out so I can stick them in these trenches, because they design square, and they're supposed to kind of have that little angle piece right up at the top, kind of like that. So we're just going to put those in like that. I did some measurements, and they did them on the other side, and they work great. Again, we got the greebles, some controls inside here, some controls there. I'm going to put a control back here and up here. And I think that's it for as far as greebles. And we're in the big stages really being done. I think I showed all this. being painted, and we'll tone all that down and dirty it all up, and you probably won't really notice it until you're standing up close. I took the liberty of just kind of giving some metallic parts in there, and like I said, I'll mist it with this, lightly mist it with this brown over top, like I did with the Falcon a lot. But let's get the rest of these triangles in. I've just been peeling them right off, and it's been working pretty good. Usually I'll get a little tab there from the brim that it prints. I can just take this and cut that off, and I just drop it in there and let it line and try to line it up. Now what's going on is the bottom is the longer part, so the triangle goes in the upper corners. I'm kind of making this my own little crawler, not the identical one from New Hope, but I'm using that as references just to get it in the right ballpark. We're going to follow some of like the weathering ideas. Like we'll do some more of that orangish red up here, and then there's some white or an off-white that gets blotched all over the place. We're going to still do that because I'm thinking that's probably going to be characteristic of a Sandcrawler, but you don't need to exactly copy the one from New Hope because that one's destroyed. The stormtroopers got at that looking for the droids, and they're going to give you that effect. But we'll keep going on. We got 4 more to do, and I think I printed a couple extra. If I was smart, I believe I did. These are such the nice benefits of having a 3D printer where I can just print things like this really quick. It only took 15 minutes. I could have filled that with putty, but then that's quite a bit of putty because it's almost 3 centimeters deep, or 3 millimeters deep. Don't worry about any of that extra that runs on top because you can just do that. All it does is fill in the print lines. Because I did draw them up so they'd be a hair higher so I can sand them flush. Because it's easier to take away than it is to add. I don't know, those two sat down nice. Now we'll let those cure, and then we'll just, I put a little bit of tulip in there after a while, and then we'll just hit it with some sandpaper. And it looks like it was always right. And like I said, I'll hit it with a primer, and if we see a little bit of a gap, you know, the spacing here and here, which to me, I'm not even too worried if we do a little bit. I can hit it with some of that surface primer and then sand it, and that'll fill in the seams. Now here's 2 more greebles. We're going to put these up inside the doorway here. So it looks like we have some controls for whatever opens this. I did no measurements, I just all by eye. Let's see if there's still some glue on here. Believe it or not, there is. I want those little things down the bottom. I just pretty much pick the height with and do that, and there's 2 halves. The interior wall has, and then there's a seam that goes all the way around, and I'm just pushing it against the exterior wall seam, which is still about that thick, so it's about that far in. Make sure my hand ain't sticking. There we go. Yeah, that looks good. That way it's not right out on the outside here. That way it can look like there's some type of place that the doors do come from. That closes this up. And then what we can do is lay this back down. This seam's looking good. The tulip's finally settled in and settled to a point. I had to do like 3 applications where it hides that seam. So that's beautiful. Alright, we'll get you on your side. It's going to be easier to sand you. I'm trying to do it where my arm's not in the way. You don't have to do much because I only made my hair bigger. Just so I can, like I said, it's easier to sand them flush than to have to putty them level. So I actually was thinking when I designed this. I'm liking that a lot. Well, there we go. Those are in now. That looks a lot better. I was going to be okay with leaving them square or rectangular, but this definitely brings it more in the accuracy of the Sandcrawler. But alright, next thing I'm going to do is paint some Jawas. I think it's time to get this front glued on here. It's going to be fun. There's this 3rd set of peg holes here. Do I have more? Well, I think if I try to get 3 of them, it's going to be real tough. Sure, I got one side of these glued in. The problem is the bottom I can't really swing out. Will that one come out? Ah, maybe we can. Makes it easier. Alright. So we're going to use those as our super glue points. And the rest we'll tape on with this. So we got to mix up some epoxy because that's going to be our best bet. I'll dab a little super glue in that spot. Super glue here. And on that peg. The pegs are the fun part to get in there. Alright, let's try to do the bottoms first. Now we got to deal with this here. So you need to go under or up and above. That's the fun part of trying to see. There we go. Yeah, once we get it going, we gotta get it going. Try this side. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Yes. Get rid of you. There we go. I'm always in my way. Alright. Tape. Ain't much to really help us tape. That's one problem. Not liking that. And worse is you can't not get crap all over your hands. I mean, most of the hull has to be painted anyway. But all right, this is where the pegs, I think, sometimes are more trouble than they're worth. Because they decide to not squeeze in all the way. With that, we can do some filling, but I really didn't want to. I have to. Something's out of something's out of whack. You gotta stay up so I can actually focus. Alright. Just have to let it cure. I wish I could get that in closer. But that's good enough. Well, hello. Just designing some. Right here, we're designing a switch plate, which I actually already printed for the Sandcrawler. And we'll have our different circuits on here, which this will go inside. And in here, I designed in FreeCAD, now it's in Bamboo Studios. This is the battery holder. You can see where the battery will actually go down and slide into that. And on the bottom, it's a solid plate. So this will set across, and then it'll slide into there, and that'll hold the battery case. Kind of like that. It would slide, and it'll hold it from underneath. And then we'll have power coming here going to this center switch. But yeah, it'll sit kind of like that, being held. But the plate will be as big as that, and that'll go right in there, and then this wire will send power to this center switch. I think I'm going to have as the main power, and then these are going to be my interior cockpit, and then probably headlights and the underneath lights. So I got this all printed out, made up so that these switches here fit in there nice, and they snap right in. So, and then I made these little blocks here that will glue to the side of the inside of the Sandcrawler, and then this will just set on top, and we'll glue it right on top. But that is this here. So right now it is over there printing the battery holder. Yep, and there it is. That's what she's going to look like. So this will be the side the battery goes in, and then there's a flat back to it to keep it from falling out the other way. And then how this is going to work, this will sit inside here. And then we'll probably put the battery plate right in here. But I got to clean up this spaghetti in here, because for a while I was just running full length wires just because I didn't know where things were going to be. But I think this will be good with the switch there, the switches there. That way we only have to lift this one little plate. This guy here goes there. So you'll be able to lift that, and there will be the switches. Maybe I'll even sit it right in about in the middle instead of way up. And then the battery plate will sit in this area. But yeah, I got a lot of figuring out what it is. I know I see I marked those two, which go down. I'm not sure if they're the headlights. I put like a little yellow on the magnet wire. So I'm not sure what they are. But at least they're marked, both of those. But we'll have to figure out what they are, if they're for, I'm going to say they're probably the headlights. And then there should be another red coming up for the down lights. But like I said, much as wire organizing. Negatives will be easy. They're all going to get tied together. But the positives, we got to send them to the correct switches. Okay, here's the spaghetti mess in here. I got all the negatives bound together, and I did little tests to make sure, because that's a lot of, this magnet wire, I think it's the red that's giving me the most trouble, which stunk, but to get it, it has an insulation that melts. So you start bundling, sometimes you want to actually clean them off and then bundle them together. But still, I'm always a little iffy if everybody connected. So that's kind of why I stopped using it. I mean, the main reason was using it because it was so thin, but then now with this wrap wire, like I don't even need use. You can see I wired this a while ago. I'm using the magnet wire and this heavier wire. So I'm thinking everything else here, that's all the negatives to every circuit, to every bulb, to every circuit there. This red wire goes to the lights in the cockpit. And then I found out the ones with the yellow stripes, the magnet wire with the yellow stripes. And then it has a, I already soldered on a resistor. It's for the headlights. So this is this side headlights, and this is that the other side headlights. And then this one coming out of this trench. There's only one red wire coming out of that trench. This one is to the underneath lights. So this will be on a switch. These two will be on the same switch for the headlights. This is permanent power. So these two, that's the cockpit lights, and then these are the work lights that I have way down low. So then we know what all these are doing. Here's our switches. Like I said, I think I'm going to make the center one a power, and then we'll have interior lights section, which will be the cockpit and the cargo hold, and then exterior lights, which will be the headlights and the underneath lights. Yeah, this is the actual what the battery holder came out like, and we'll have this sit in here, and you can just slide the battery in, and I built the back so it'll hit, but it's a little tight here, and I could use a little more this way, so I just went back into Bamboo Studios and just went into resize, clicked it so it doesn't change all the dimensions, because otherwise when you pull this way it goes that way too. And I just pulled everything a little bit bigger this way, because this could be a little longer, because there's a little bit of play, and this definitely needed a hair more space in between here to fit the battery case. This way is fine, so didn't have to worry about that. Okay, so is this heating up? Yes. Sometimes I forget that preheat this gun and you're ready to go, but you have no solder heat. Alright, so what are we going to do? I think the best thing to do, way to do this, need some extra. So it only has to be really a jumper. So what we'll do is we'll solder one end, and then we'll just pull the insulation. We'll slide it through, and then we'll just pull the insulation every so often. Start right there and give a little tug. And then that way you show a little bit of that wire. You got to make sure you have free ends so the insulation has a place to go. There you go. Be small enough to get through that little hole. Do something like that. And drop some solder down there. And that way it'll send power to all the other switches. And for this one, you just measure over. We're going to come down, and we'll have all the leads coming off at this end, and our main power coming in here. But then this little jumper power will come in, and when we hit the switch on, it'll go to each one of those. So then you just measure off and pull more insulation out. Yeah, it sure beats making little jumpers, like cutting the little wire and sticking it through, Just make one long jumper you can go, right through. And you can even leave a little slack, like if you want to make them a little loopy like that, as long as you leave enough wire. So now we can actually start soldering all this chaos. Now these, I'm going to have to leave long because I already soldered the resistor on. Probably because I did those headlights in series. So they're probably running 6 volts. Now I cleaned up those negatives, bundled them together so they're not springing around. And then I took those 2 shop lights, and actually I have a point here where it gets, because I already attached this wire to the switch, and I want both the ceiling and those work lights that are down low to come on at the same time. So I'm like, well, that wire goes to here and jumps across these 3 points. Here's a point right here where I can have those work light wires that are coming up through these tubes here just jump into there, and I tested that and that works good. I added an extension to these 2. This is the positive to the lights in the back here for that turn on the furnaces and stuff, and the blue goes to the consoles up there, so those consoles / work areas will light up all one time with the constant power. So I just tied it on the same spot where I tied these little jumpers, so when you flip the switch it sends power, even though everything else is off, but at least the consoles are running, kind of like the ship turned on. We just haven't turned lights on. Okay, so the next one we'll do is the underneath lights, and then we'll do the headlights in the very end. So what we could do, if I leave it at that length, is it going to be a pain in the rumpus? Or can I? No, it's just easier to solder like that. I think we can take off as much as we can. Slide it down here. It's less wire, the better. But we got plenty of room to tuck it up inside here because this is all pretty much hollow. I think there's an angle where the console, where the cockpit comes in. We got a dust in here, and we got to get the Jawas and the 2 droids I'm going to put up in there too. All right, let's melt this wire. Hopefully this doesn't take 1,000 clicks. I tell you what, this is clearing off really good with that torch. With a lighter, it was sucking. And maybe it was the red that was fine. Maybe it was the brass and the green. I don't remember. But I stopped using it because it was just becoming a pain. Still, you got to make sure you scrape off the soot. It's supposed to be that you can solder. You can actually twist things up, and just the heat of the solder will strip it at the same time. But I don't always like that because, like I said, it does leave a soot, which can cause a problem for solder wanting to stick. And just for the fact that you got to get it really hot. Because the wire actually transmits a lot of the heat away. Did we get solder, or did it just jump around the... no, it's soldered. Get rid of this piece. Go. Yeah, that's not terrible much. Let's do that. Alright, only one more left to do. I can take these two. Twist them together. I got those. There we go. Tin those together, and we'll hook it. There we go. Alright, so all those are in. The only way we could really test that is I could grab onto there and grab onto the main power and see if we get anything. Just grab onto this. The negative. Grab onto that terminal of the positive. As soon as we do that, I have the furnaces running and the consoles are running. But anyway, okay, we can check things. That should turn on. Interior lights down below, and it did. Look at that, this handle I'm going to keep hitting with my head. Yep, and the work lights are working too. We're getting lights there, and then this one is for the cockpit lights. There they go. And this is for the lower lights. Like, those are a little dim too. I thought they were a lot brighter. Alright, and then the next switch should be the headlights. There we go. Alright, everything is on. Yeah, we didn't do any exterior besides those. I still wish those were a little brighter though. Sweet, so our circuits are working. We just got to hook up the battery. And it just finished printing the newer. But yeah, that's going to sit right about there. So then, like I said, all you have to do is, this will be magnetized. Just lift that up, turn your switches on, And there you go. And this is not the new battery case, and then this will sit here. And if you need to access it to change batteries, you just lift this part. Really liking this ship. Now, Gambodies has, this is a Model A 3D, which is great because this, I'm not making the Canon one that you see on Star Wars A New Hope. This is just a different version of it. I mean, these, I don't know if they're Corellian, but they're really mining. I believe they were mining vehicles. From what I remember seeing on, or watching on YouTube when I was researching on this. One of the first settlers on Tatooine were miners. So they had a lot of these. I don't know what the vehicle's actual name is, or is there one? I'm sure there is. I have to go on Wikipedia. So these were mining vehicles that were left there. It probably would have cost them more to bring them back home, and they're probably used and abused. So the Jawas just scavenged them. It's perfect for them. It's a mobile home, plus a whole factory for them to scavenge and sell stuff so they can live. So I'm thinking of this as a different version of it. You know, Jawas are going to scavenge different parts for each of their Sandcrawlers. So, you know, the main thing that's really different, I think up here it's a little different as far as how all this is made and stuff. Paneling might be different. There's just minor stuff. I added all this detail and that and stuff like that. Even I think even the Gambodies doesn't have this detail, so I'll probably have to do it again. But I've gotten better with making stuff. But I might make another one that's more Canon because it actually has the Canon hydraulics, which are kind of like a dual hydraulic. And you'll see more of the actual piston arm down here, where this heavier hydraulic part is up top, and then, which would make more sense, that it would push down instead of the way this does. But it's also like a dual hydraulic system. So the Gambodies has, I think I like this interior more. It has more busyness to it. But I might build that one as, I still notice that the windows aren't 100% Canon. Like I said, there should be a smaller or two smaller ones here. But even the Gambodies one isn't. But I think I might do that one as well. This could be almost, even just like on Mandalorian, there was a totally different Sandcrawler. Even though it still had the same look, because they're going to copy the exact, as far as detail and the hydraulics and stuff like that, and the tracks. But yeah, I'll have to do a deeper dive on how that one looks. But that one I would make the Canon one, just for the fact that I know that the hydraulics are Canon, so probably a lot of more other details, a little more Canon on that one. I don't know about the engine section. Probably. I do like this engine section though. But this is going to be, like I said, this is going to be more of just another Sandcrawler, Jawa Sandcrawler. Just so happens to have every droid, well, not every, but a lot of the key droids that you see in the canon. We got R2, C-3PO, a lot of the bad droids, R5, BB-8, Chopper. You know, there's all kinds of ones you see in A New Hope that are in there. So we're gonna follow. We're gonna follow that. I'm sure they all weathered similar, just not like if there's a rust spot here, and this one wouldn't be exactly the same, unless there's a mechanical thing that's causing issues, or like oil leaks or something. So we'll go with that orangish color rust weathering up here and some of the whites, and we'll go with the same colors, but I'm not going to match, you know, splotch for splotch. We're going to take it on. I might want a little more orange over here. Then a lot of it's up in this section on the Canon one, on the New Hope one. I might want to do more on this, you know. So that makes it easier when you're not actually replicating an actual vehicle. Like say if you're doing Red 5 X-Wing, you're going to try to mimic at least the blast hits, and a lot of it's weathering you're going to try to mimic. But this one will have fun and go off. It's kind of like an AT-AT. There's no Canon like one, you know, you can tell that that's that one, you know, like Red 5 or the Falcon. But that makes me happy. We got that. So now I can, I think the new one printed. I just heard it go do its little music notes. Here's the newer one. Let's see how much bigger it is. It's only a skosh. I think I only did like 2 millimeters. But that's all it needed, and that should give us a... Oh, still. It had to build supports under here. I just didn't take my time when you do CAD, you're kind of like, I start off with this plate, and I made 2 long things, got them to where I wanted them, and then pad them out. Then you do these 2 going this way, and then pad them out, and then I add a little rectangle to the back as a back. But I didn't make it come all the way over here, so it's like just, I think I made that just 2 millimeters. But I didn't extend it all the way over there. It didn't make sense. So I was like, I'd rather print it like this so there's no supports. If you do this, it would need supports. If you do it this way, it would need supports. But this way, it doesn't. So, alright, the big test is, does the battery pack fit? Probably not. Hey, yes! And nicely. And it's got friction that it's not gonna... I have to pull it. That's exactly what I wanted. Now I could actually run it this way and have that like that, and set it in like this. Oh, and that's nice and tight. I could do something like that, which would allow you to read on, you know. It's kind of 6 1/2 dozen the other. We got to make sure we have enough room to pull the battery out. So it's going to have to go back a little further. It's going to have to go back here. But that, I think that's going to be nice. So we'll call it an evening. And then we'll measure the side and measure how I want to do this. I kind of do like that. You can see that. And if these get warm, it has ways of getting air. Yeah, that'll work. But the main thing is to make sure I have a battery width and some, so I can, when we need to change the batteries. These are I got for running ships at like a show. You get these battery packs, and then I just attach these little 2.5 or 2.1 or whatever it is millimeter jacks on the end, and it runs most ships fairly fine. Your smaller ones, like Ahsoka's, is running off of 3 volts to 2 AAAs. And as long as you get the good AAAs that have some good milliamps. I mean, I was running most of the lights, except for like the wing lights and the two cockpit lights. So that's 4 lights at 2, 4, 6, 8 at 80 milliamps less, and it ran all night and into the next day. So it still had some juice. So really only need it to run for like a 6-8 hour show. And if it's a 2-day like Wonderfest is, then I just come out in the morning and put new batteries in it. Alright, started doing the treads. I just took a little gunmetal from Folk Arts and watered it down. You can get it real runny, almost pretty much like a wash, maybe a hair thicker than a wash. And when you brush it over this, that's why I went and just did these in a along with this rusty here. Then it kind of shows through. I did it with other metal parts where so it kind of shows like a surface rust kind of thing, where it's light and pitty. So you can still see a little bit of red, and once we've hit it with a flat to bring down some of that sheen, but you'll still see that it's a metallic tread, but it'll bring down the sheen, and then you'll still see some of that red in it. It's working good, so I'm happy with that. Although I did have to, like, these are super glued together, I did have to pull them apart so I can get, because I think you can probably, even from outside, see in there. And I can see some of these tread pads, these pieces there. And I wanted to get them on the inside. And I realized why this was so dark. There was tape over it. I had it masked off for when I sprayed it with this base coat. So that's why that was. So now I took the tape off of those, so they should be nice and bright. After that's what it is when you have these shelf queens that you've been working on for a long time. And that's been happening to me a lot with, I get OCD and I want to move to something else, or I find a new print or a new model or something and you want to start doing it. Well, the main thing that slowed this one down was Boyd's passing, because then I wanted to start working on those Enterprises and the dry dock, the space dock, which I still have to finish the space dock. But I wanted to get the ship finished, and I started on a Star Destroyer, but I lost a lot of the footage on that. And I lost a lot of footage on the beginning of my Star Trek TOS command bridge model. So we'll be kind of, in the future, that's been a shelf queen for a while, but in the future, it's going to kind of jump in with stuff already painted and stuff. But I'll go through what I did with the wiring. Same thing with the Star Destroyer. Nothing major. It's just normal glue and parts. I haven't gotten to the electronics yet. So that's something coming up in the future. And then I think what I'm going to do is I have a Gambody's Star Destroyer, which I got in a bundle of stuff from them. That I'm going to do as Grand Admiral Thrawn's. I thought about doing the Revell 2700, but I already have the antenna in the ISD-2 position, which you see in Empire Strikes Back. But A New Hope, that little X thing in the center of the bridge area, and then you have your deflector dishes, domes, is up in A New Hope. In Empire they put it down, so A New Hope is supposed to be what they call the ISD, or Imperial Star Destroyer 1, Mark 1, and then Mark 2 they brought it down. But in the Gambody's 3D print, I can actually put that one up, where I already have this one down. The photo etch What photo etch is that? Is that from Paragraphics or is that Green Strawberries? I want to say it's Paragraphics. It gives you the things to make the antenna sit upright like an ISD one. Maybe if I can pop that off and put the new ones on. But I'm thinking the other reason why I want to do the GAN bodies one as the ISD or the Chimera basically is because it has all kinds of cool guns everywhere. You can choose what guns. What is there? 4 on each side up top. You can choose what ones of those. It has a whole bunch of guns underneath. It has so much more cool weapons. So I figured out would be make nice to make that one the Chimera that, you know, she's got a lot more, you know, Grand Admiral Thrawn was into doing more with what they had, like make a better TIE fighter, like he started the TIE Defender program instead of sinking this money in this one battle station, you know, the Death Star. He wasn't a big fan of the Death Star because a lot of money and time and resources went into one battleship, which they could have made a bunch of, you know, elite starfighters and cruisers, in his opinion, which I kind of agree that would. But anyway, I'm going off on a rant like I usually do. So, but yeah, so I forgot. I taped them up. So what we'll do is we'll put some solar res in there. I might even think about hitting a little silver, but I don't think so. Those lights are bright. We might leave them black and just put some solar res in there. But I'm liking how these are. I have to super glue them back together. The bad thing is when I break them apart, they used, oh, there's a filament that didn't glue together. They used filament, they had you use, I should say, filament to go in these little locating holes. But I can just use this as the lineup, and then to get them even as far as like that, if I slide them out and back them down so they touch, and I can kind of do a clampy like that, and they'll be fine. So, but I'm going to continue painting these. I was glad to find out about that because I was kind of like, why? And I was wondering, it was, you know, real yellow too, and that makes sense because it was yellow masking tape over top of it. That's just one thing I didn't peel out. So, while we got it flipped, we'll hit it with some solar res. Well, okay, I got some of the detail painting done on the back here. Did this in like I think it's like a gun steel kind of thing, but did it really thin so you can kind of see some of the rusty red brown coming through, which is what I wanted. I did these in a copper and then a brass here. Did some little details here and there. And the tracks are done. So we got those done. But just wanted to show you what I did there. Did a little bit up on those devices too. Now once this gets all hit with washes and I'll be hitting some different things with airbrush to look at what weathered, all that shininess will go down. But I kind of wanted something back there, kind of like what I did to there. Like brand new, that was really over shiny. But then you just kind of tone it down. I actually hit it with the hull color again. And I probably could do the same with here, but I think I'm going to, since this is the engine, I'm going to have it all blackened up and greased up. But then it gives you a hint that things are made out of different materials instead of everything just being blasted with the hull color. But next is to start all the exterior painting on this.